The shove wasn't loud, but it landed hard. Marcus Reed staggered half a step, the heel of his shoe scraping concrete as a crowd at the downtown construction site went quiet. Morning light bounced off steel beams and yellow helmets, and somewhere a generator coughed like it had choked on the moment. The police officer didn't look at Marcus's face, just his chest, his jacket, the coffee cup in his hand, before planting a palm there and pushing him back toward the curb. "Move along," the officer said, bored, already turning. "This area for authorized personnel." Marcus steadied himself. His pulse thudded in his ears, louder than the jackhammer restarting behind the fence. He tasted bitterness, old, familiar, at the back of his tongue. He had crossed 3 states overnight for this meeting. He had signed the checks that paid for uniforms, the machinery, the overtime, and now he was being erased with a gesture. "I am authorized," Marcus said, keeping his voice level. The officer finally looked at him. The glance flicked over Marcus's skin. His locks pulled neat at the nape, the scuffed boots. A smirk tugged at the corner of the man's mouth. "Sure you are," he said, and leaned closer. "Try the sidewalk." People watched. No one spoke. Phones stayed down. The fence rattled in the wind. Marcus stepped back because the law was a wall you bruise yourself against if you push too hard. He watched the officer wave through a white man in a blazer without checking his badge. Something inside Marcus went cold and sharp. Behind the fence, a banner flapped loose, half revealing the company logo Marcus had approved last night. And then his phone buzzed. The subject line glowed on the screen. "Emergency board update. Effective immediately." Marcus Reed had learned how to stand still without looking small. He planted his feet on the cracked sidewalk and kept his shoulders loose, even as heat crawled up his neck. The construction site roared back to life behind the fence, metal screaming, engines growling, like the moment had already been swallowed. Officer Daniel Klein adjusted his belt and spoke to a foreman as if Marcus weren't there. "You can't just put hands on people," Marcus said. Klein sighed and turned. "You were obstructing," he replied. "I told you to move." "I was walking to the site office." "Which you don't have access to," Klein said. He tipped his chin toward the street. "Sidewalk's public." Marcus glanced at the badge number, memorizing it the way his mother had taught him. Quiet, precise. "What's your name?" Klein smiled. "Officer Klein. You filing a complaint." A laugh rippled from somewhere behind the fence. The foreman looked away. "Yes," Marcus said. "I am." Klein's smile thinned. "Good luck with that." A white man in a blazer approached, badge swinging. Klein stepped aside without checking it. "Morning, sir." Marcus watched the exchange, the ease of it, the absence of friction. He felt the familiar calculation click into place. Stay, escalate, risk arrest, or leave, document, survive. He chose survival. At the precinct, the air smelled like disinfectant and old coffee. A woman at the front desk slid a clipboard across the counter without meeting his eyes. "Fill it out," she said. "Be specific." Marcus wrote slowly. Time, location, physical contact. He kept his language clean, factual. When he finished, she glanced at the page and shrugged. "Internal affairs will review," she said. "Could take a while." "How long is a while?" She gave him a look that was almost apologetic. "Depends." He stepped back into sunlight with a hollow feeling in his chest. His phone buzzed again. A text from Lena, his partner. "You okay?" "Heard something happened." "I'm fine," he typed. He didn't send more. That night, the footage replayed in his head. The shove, the smirk, the silence. He poured a drink he didn't finish. His inbox filled with routine emails, contracts, schedules. At midnight, a message from the city flashed across his screen. No policy violation found at this time. Marcus laughed once, short and sharp. The next morning, news vans lined the street for a different story. He walked past them unnoticed. At the site, the banner flapped again, still loose. Marcus stopped and looked up at the logo, the one he owned more than anyone else in the city knew. He touched the fence, felt the vibration of work continuing without him. "Not yet," he said to no one, and walked away. Internal Affairs called on a Tuesday, which Marcus found almost funny. Tuesdays were for budgets and timelines, for decisions that pretended to be neutral. The voice on the line belonged to a man named Sergeant Allen Brooks. Measured, polite, practiced. "Mr. Reed," Brooks said, "we've reviewed your complaint." Marcus sat at his kitchen table, legal pad open, pen uncapped, and Officer Klein reports he used minimal contact to redirect foot traffic. Brooks replied, "No excessive force. I was pushed." "I understand you felt that way," Brooks said, "but perception can differ." Marcus closed his eyes. The refrigerator hummed. A siren wailed somewhere distant, then faded. There were witnesses. "Yes," Brooks said, unbothered. "None corroborated misconduct. Did you interview them?" A pause. Paper rustled. "We reviewed statements." "From who?" "Site personnel. Employed by a contractor with city permits," Marcus said. "Who answers to the department?" Another pause, shorter. "Mr. Reed, if you have additional evidence." "I do," Marcus said. "Badge number. Time stamp. A pattern. Pattern requires substantiation." Marcus leaned back, feeling the chair creak. "How many complaints does Officer Klein have?" "That information is confidential." "So is accountability," Marcus said, and hung up. At City Line Development, the conference room lights hummed like insects. Lena Carter sat across from him, jacket draped over the chair, phone face down. She'd built companies with Marcus from scratch, learned to read rooms that didn't expect them. "This is a mess," she said gently, "but it's not the Hill." "Whose hill is it?" Marcus asked. "Not yours," Lena said. "Yet. We're mid-bid. City council votes in 6 weeks. If this turns adversarial." "It already is," Marcus said. Lena exhaled. "Let me handle the outreach. Quietly. I'll call the deputy chief. Quiet is how this disappears." "Quiet is how we win," she said. Across town, Officer Klein leaned against a cruiser, coffee steaming. His supervisor, Lieutenant Harris, clapped him on the shoulder. "IA called it clean," Harris said. "You're good." Klein smirked. "Told you. Guy didn't belong there." "Just be smarter," Harris added. "Optics." Klein nodded, eyes already elsewhere. By Friday, a local blogger posted a paragraph about an alleged incident. It sank beneath real news, budgets, sports, weather. Marcus watched the numbers tick down. Silence did its work. He met his father that evening at a diner, with cracked vinyl booths. James Reed stirred his coffee slowly, hand steady despite the tremor that came with age. "You pushing this?" his father asked. "I'm documenting," Marcus said. James nodded. "Paper trails matter. They get buried." "Sometimes," James said. "Sometimes they grow teeth." Marcus smiled despite himself. "You always say that." James met his eyes. "Because I lived it." The city sent a letter the next week. Formal, bloodless, no further action warranted. Marcus filed it anyway, slid it into a folder already thick. At the site, work accelerated. Permits cleared. Cameras came and went. Marcus stayed away. He slept poorly. Dreams looped. Fences, hands, a voice telling him to move. Then the calendar invite arrived. Special session. Development Oversight Committee. Lena forwarded it with a single line. "This just got public." Marcus read the agenda twice. His name wasn't there. The project was. He stood by the window and watched the city breathe. Buses, people, light. He thought of the banner, still loose, and the line he hadn't crossed. "Okay," he said softly. "Let's talk." The boardroom was quieter than Marcus expected. Glass walls looked out over the city, sunlight breaking into clean lines across the table. Leather chairs sat evenly spaced, nameplates aligned with precision that suggested order, not truth. Marcus took his seat at the far end, the one he'd chosen years ago, because it let him watch everyone without being watched first. "Before we begin," said Richard Hale, the interim chair, "there's a procedural matter." Marcus nodded once. He already knew. A screen lit up. Numbers appeared, percentages, shares, voting power. Names scrolled beneath them like a confession. When the final column settled, the room shifted. Marcus Reed, 52%. A few people cleared their throats. Someone adjusted a tie. Lena met Marcus's eyes and lifted her chin just slightly. As of last quarter, Hale continued, Mr. Reed is a majority owner of City Line Development. No applause. No congratulations. Just a soft recalibration of respect. Marcus spoke when the silence stretched too long. I've always been a majority owner. Hale smiled thinly. Of course. But I didn't advertise it, Marcus finished, because ownership doesn't protect you from being pushed aside on a sidewalk. A murmur ran around the table. Legal counsel scribbled notes. Across town, Officer Klein sat in a squad room scrolling his phone. The headline made him pause. Developer at center complaint holds majority stake. He frowned and snorted. Figures, he said to no one. Money talks. His partner glanced over. You read that? Yeah, Klein said. Guy's got cash. Still doesn't belong everywhere. Back in the boardroom, Marcus's mind drifted, not to money, but to rooms like this one from years ago. He remembered being talked over, mistaken for staff, praised for articulation. He'd learn when to speak and when to let silence work. Majority quiet. His father called it, the kind that waited. We need to discuss risk, Hale said. Public perception. Marcus leaned forward. Public perception isn't the risk. The risk is pretending this was isolated. A director frowned. You're suggesting. I'm stating, Marcus said calmly. There's a pattern, and if we benefit from city contracts, we inherit city problems. Lena jumped in. The Oversight Committee hearing will surface complaints beyond this incident. We should be ready. Ready how? Another director asked. With facts, Marcus said, and with honesty. Phones buzzed around the table. News alerts. Social media spikes. The quiet was breaking. That afternoon, Marcus walked past the site again. He stayed on the sidewalk. Cameras lingered now. Workers glanced over, curious, wary. The banner still flapped loose, stubborn. A reporter approached. Mr. Reed, can you comment on the incident? Marcus stopped. He chose his words like tools. I can comment on systems, he said. They don't fail. They function. Are you accusing the department? I'm describing outcomes. The clip ran that night. Slow, measured, unignorable. At the precinct, Lieutenant Harris watched it twice. He called Klein into his office. Keep your head down, Harris said. This is getting attention. Klein crossed his arms. I did my job. Do it quieter, Harris snapped. Marcus met his father again at the diner. James listened, nodded. Being right won't make you whole, James said. I know, Marcus replied, but being silent costs more. When Marcus left, his phone buzzed with a calendar update. Oversight hearing. Public testimony added. He looked back at the city, at the lines he owned and the ones that still blocked him. Okay, he said again, not softly this time. Let's talk. The chamber smelled like old paper and polished wood, the kind of room built to outlast anger. Rows of seats filled slowly, a low murmur rising and falling as people checked agendas and adjusted coats. Marcus sat near the aisle, hands folded, spine straight. Cameras blinked awake. Order, the chair said, gavel sharp against the desk. We'll begin with public testimony. The first speaker was a woman with tired eyes and a trembling voice. I was stopped walking my dog, she said. Officer Klein told me to keep moving like I didn't live there. She swallowed. I filed a complaint. Nothing happened. A man followed. Traffic stop, he said. Hands on the hood. No ticket, just humiliation. Each story landed with a soft thud, building weight. Dates overlapped. Language repeated. Minimal contact. Perception differed. No policy violation. Klein sat with his union rep, jaw tight. He leaned toward the microphone when called. I enforce the law, he said. I don't profile. Did you make physical contact with Mr. Reed? A council member asked. I redirected him, Klein replied. For safety. Marcus watched the room, not the man. He saw who nodded, who didn't. When his name was called, the air shifted. Marcus stood and walked to the podium. He didn't bring notes. "I don't want your sympathy," he began. "I want accuracy." A murmur rippled. "I was pushed," he said, "in public, for existing in a space I helped build. The question isn't whether that hurt my feelings. The question is why it was permitted." A council member leaned forward. "Mr. Reed, are you asserting discrimination?" "I'm asserting a pattern," Marcus said. "And patterns don't need intent to cause harm." He paused, let the silence do its work. "I own a majority stake in Cityline development. That didn't stop what happened. It explains what didn't." Klein scoffed, just loud enough. Marcus turned his head. He didn't raise his voice. "You pushed me because you thought no one would care." The room went still. "I care," Marcus continued, "because every time this happens and nothing follows, the message spreads. Move along. Try the sidewalk." A council member cleared her throat. "Officer Klein, do you wish to respond?" Klein leaned in. "This is being blown up," he said. "I treated him like anyone else." "Did you?" Marcus asked quietly. The chair banged the gavel. "Direct questions through the chair." Marcus nodded. "Of course." Testimony closed. The chair announced a recess. Cameras swarmed. Marcus stepped back, heart pounding now that the words were out. Lena appeared at his side. "That landed," she said. "Did it?" Marcus asked. She gestured to reporters, the aides whispering urgently. "It did." Across the room, Harris spoke to Klein in a low voice. "You're on leave," Harris said. "Administrative." Klein's face flushed. "For this?" "For optics," Harris replied. "Again." Outside, rain began to fall, thin and insistent. Marcus stood under the awning and let it cool his skin. A woman approached, mid-30s, notebook pressed her chest. "My brother filed a complaint," she said. "He never heard back." She met Marcus's eyes. "Thank you." He nodded, throat tight. "I'm sorry it took this." That night, the footage looped on every channel. Marcus's words, Klein's denial, the list of complaints scrolling like credits. Commentators argued. The city promised review. Marcus sat alone in his living room, lights off, the TV glow painting the walls. His phone buzzed, unknown number. "Mr. Reed," a voice said, "this is legal. We need to talk about exposure." "Whose?" Marcus asked. A pause. "Everyone's." He hung up and stared at the dark window, at his reflection layered over the city. He felt the cost settling in. Emails, threats, the long work ahead. His phone buzzed again. A new alert flashed. Body cam footage requested. Pending release. Marcus exhaled slowly. Somewhere, a camera waited to be seen. The footage surfaced at dawn. Marcus learned about the way everything seemed to arrive now, through a vibration on his nightstand, a screen lighting up the dark. Body cam released. He sat up, heart already racing, and pressed play before the headline finished loading. The angle was wrong first. Too low, too close. The lens caught Klein's chest, the edge of the fence, Marcus's boots. Then the sound, wind, machinery, the flat impatience in Klein's voice. "Move along." The shove looked smaller on video. It always did. But the context filled the gaps. The pause before contact, the tone that carried permission, the way Klein's hand lingered a beat too long. When Marcus spoke, "I am authorized," the camera dipped as if embarrassed. Commentators slowed it down. Lawyers circled phrases. The city released a statement within the hour. "We take these matters seriously." Marcus watched once, then turned it off. His phone erupted anyway. Texts, calls, emails marked urgent. Lena's name flashed. "This changes things," she said without preamble. "Sponsors are calling. The department's scrambling." "Good," Marcus said, though his stomach churned. By noon, the narrative split. Some called it proof. Others called it nothing. Marcus's inbox filled with all disguised as opinion. He stopped reading when his hands began to shake. At the precinct, Harris stared at the same footage on repeat. He rubbed his temples. Who leaked it? Internal Affairs shrugged. Public records request. Harris scoffed. Convenient. Klein sat in the locker room, staring at his reflection in the dented metal door. His phone buzzed, union texts, messages from friends gone quiet. He slammed it shut. "They're hanging me out," he muttered. Or you walked into the light. A voice said behind him. Klein turned. No one was there. Marcus spent the afternoon in meetings he barely heard. Legal frameworks. Risk assessments. A consultant suggested a softer tone. Marcus declined. "They want you grateful," his father said over the phone that evening. "Careful." "I'm tired of careful," Marcus replied. The city announced a task force. The department promised training. The language was familiar, smooth as glass. That night, a brick shattered Marcus's car window. He stood on the sidewalk, rain slicking the pavement, glass glittering at his feet. A neighbor hovered, concerned, filming. Marcus raised a hand. "It's fine," he said. "Just property." Inside, he sat on the floor and breathed until the shaking stopped. He thought of the woman with the notebook, of the dog walker, of the quiet. The next morning, Lena brought coffee and bad news. "Threats are escalating," she said. "Security wants protocols." Marcus nodded. "Do it." At City Hall, the Oversight Committee reconvened. This time, the room buzzed. Klein didn't attend. A letter from the department was read into the record. Officer placed on administrative leave, pending review. Marcus spoke briefly. "Footage doesn't end patterns," he said. "Action does." Outside, a reporter shouted, "Do you feel vindicated?" Marcus paused. "I feel tired." The city released the findings a week later. Policy failures. Recommendations. No admission. The department accepted them in principle. Klein received notice of a disciplinary hearing. He tore up and taped it back together, hands shaking. Marcus stood at the site again, this time with security. The banner had been fixed overnight. It hung straight, bright. A worker nodded at him. "Sorry about before," the man said. Marcus nodded back. "Me too." As he turned away, his phone buzzed with a new alert. Officer Klein to resign. Sources. Marcus closed his eyes. He knew better than to celebrate. Exposure wasn't justice. It was a door cracked open. He stepped through anyway. The resignation hit the news cycle like a stone dropped into shallow water. Loud at first, then quickly absorbed by the ripples of the next story. Marcus watched it scroll past on a muted screen in the conference room. The cheering reading sources say officer to step down. No press conference. No apology. Lena folded her arms. "They're framing it as voluntary." "Of course they are," Marcus said. "It always is." Across town, Klein packed his locker under fluorescent lights that hummed too loudly. He moved fast, avoiding eyes. A union rep hovered, whispering about options. Klein didn't answer. He shoved his gear into a duffel and left without looking back. The department announced reforms the same afternoon. Body cam audits, bias training, a new review board. The mayor praised community engagement. Marcus read the memo twice and felt nothing. At the next oversight session, Marcus took the seat reserved for witnesses again. The chair thanked him for his civic participation. He corrected her gently. "This wasn't participation," he said. "It was resistance." A council member nodded. Another checked the phone. When the vote came, it was unanimous. Recommendations adopted. Implementation to follow. Marcus exhaled slowly, the air leaving him like a promise he didn't fully believe. Outside, a small group waited. Advocates, neighbors, a few familiar faces. The woman with the notebook smiled and clapped once. Quietly, Marcus joined them, the city moving around them as if nothing fundamental had shifted. "You did good," someone said. Marcus nodded. "We did." At Cityline, the board reconvened. Hale spoke about stability, investor confidence, the path forward. Marcus listened, then interrupted. "We're adding clauses," he said, "to our contracts. Independent oversight. Real penalties." A director bristled. "That could slow projects." "It will slow harm," Marcus replied. "Choose." They chose. That night, Marcus stood in his apartment, lights off, city glowing beyond the glass. He replayed the shove again, Not the impact, but the decision he'd made to step back. He felt the bruise that never showed, the ache of being careful in rooms that didn't require of others. His father called. "You okay?" "I'm standing," Marcus said. James hummed. "Standing costs energy." "I know." Silence stretched comfortable. Then James said, "Proud of you." The word landed heavier than Marcus expected. He closed his eyes and let it. Weeks passed. Klein's resignation became a footnote. The department's reforms rolled out unevenly. Some officers attended training with crossed arms. Others leaned in. Progress crept unglamorous. Marcus received an email from the city's legal office. Settlement terms for affected complainants. Oversight seats offered. He accepted with conditions. At the site, construction near completion. The banner remained straight. Marcus walked the perimeter with Lena, hard hats on. "You could have walked away," she said. "I thought about it," Marcus replied. "Why didn't you?" He stopped and looked at the steel rising against the sky. "Because leaving doesn't end the story. It just moves it." A reporter caught up with them. "Mr. Reed, do you think justice was served?" Marcus considered. "Justice isn't a moment," he said. "It's maintenance." The reporter frowned, scribbled. That evening, Marcus found the brick on his desk, cleaned and paperweight heavy. He set it down beside the framed photo of his parents at the diner, both smiling like they knew something he was still learning. His phone buzzed with final alert. Department announces termination proceedings, misconduct findings. Marcus stared at it, then placed the phone face down. Collapse wasn't loud. It was cumulative. He slept through the night for the first time in months. In the morning, he returned to the site without security. Workers nodded. One waved. The foreman approached, hand outstretched. "Congratulations," the man said, awkward but sincere. Marcus shook his hand. "Finish it right," he replied. As he left, Marcus felt the weight lift just enough to breathe. The cost remained fatigue, vigilance, a scar he'd carry quietly. But the structure had shifted. A door stayed open. He stepped into the street and crossed it without being told to move. The quiet came late. Marcus noticed it one evening when the city noise softened instead of sharpened. He sat on the balcony with a glass of water, the air cool against his skin, and realized his shoulders had dropped. Not relaxed, never that, but no longer braced. He thought justice would feel louder. Instead, it felt like absence. Fewer emails marked urgent. Fewer sirens threatening his sleep. The adrenaline that had carried him through hearings and headlines drained away, leaving a dull, persistent ache. He went to work and found himself staring at spreadsheets without reading them. Lena noticed first. "You're running on empty," she said. "I'm running," Marcus replied. "That's the problem." He waved it off until his hands started shaking again, subtle but unmistakable. At the diner, his father watched him stir coffee. He didn't drink. "You win something," James said, "and your body doesn't know what to do when a fight ends." "I didn't win," Marcus said. James nodded. "Exactly." The stories kept arriving. Emails from people he'd never met, thanking him, asking him to speak, to lead, to fix. Each one carried its own weight. Marcus answered when he could, carefully, honestly. "I can't be everywhere," he wrote, "but I can stand where I am." Some nights, the shove returned in fragments. The scrape of concrete, the smirk, the sound of nothing happening. Marcus learned the cost of being visible. He learned the cost of being believed. At Cityline, progress looked like paperwork and patience. Oversight meetings dragged. Penalties were negotiated down. Marcus pushed, measured, compromised when it mattered least. He held the line when it mattered most. A young intern stopped him in the hallway one afternoon. "My brother saw the hearing," she said. "He wants to be an engineer now." Marcus smiled, surprised by the sting behind his eyes. "Tell him we need him." He began therapy quietly, a choice he didn't announce. He learned new words for old wounds. Hypervigilance, moral injury. He learned to breathe through them. One weekend, he returned to the diner alone. He sat in the same crack booth and ordered the same coffee. The waitress recognized him. "You're the guy," she said. "Which guy?" Marcus asked. She shrugged. the one who didn't let it go. Marcus looked out the window at the street, at people moving through it unremarkably. Sometimes, he said, letting it go lets it grow. She nodded like that made sense. When the building opened, Marcus stood at the back of the crowd. Speeches echoed. Ribbons fell. He clapped when appropriate, smiled when expected. He slipped away before the applause finished. Later, alone, he walked the perimeter one last time. The fence was gone. The sidewalk was clear. Marcus stepped forward and paused. Not because anyone stopped him, but because he felt the echo of the old choice. Stay. Escalate. Leave. This time he walked on. The morning the keys were handed over, the sky stayed undecided. Clouds drifted low, softening the edges of the city. Marcus stood at the curb across from the finished building, hands in his coat pockets, watching people enter without hesitation. No fence, no banner, just doors opening and closing like they always should have. Inside City Hall, a memo circulated. Final findings, disciplinary outcomes, implementation dates. Officer Klein's name appeared once, small and definitive. Termination finalized. No flourish. No footnote. The department moved on. Marcus read it and felt the expected nothing. Justice, when it arrived, didn't announce itself. It settled. He met Lena for coffee near the site. They sat by the window, steam rising between them. You did more than own this place, she said. Marcus shook his head. Ownership isn't a deed. It's responsibility. She smiled. You sound like your father. Marcus looked out the sidewalk. He taught me to read rooms. This taught me to change them. A man approached the table, hesitant. Mr. Reed? I just wanted to say, my complaint was reopened. They called yesterday. Marcus stood and shook his hand. I'm glad, he said. Keep going. As the man left, Marcus felt the cost again. Time, safety, sleep, but it was threaded now with something sturdier. Continuity, cause and effect, the work that followed the moment. That afternoon, Marcus toured the building quietly. He stopped in the lobby where sunlight spilled across polished floors. A plaque listed contributors. His name appeared among many, not highlighted, not hidden. He touched the wall, cool and real. Outside, a patrol car passed. It didn't slow. Marcus noted the absence and let it be. At the diner, James waited in their booth, 2 coffees already poured. You look different, his father said. Lighter, Marcus replied. Heavier, too. James nodded. That's ownership. They sat in companionable silence. Then James said, You changed the math. Marcus smiled. It was always there. When Marcus left, he walked a long way home. He crossed the street at the site, then crossed it again for no reason other than to feel the choice. People moved around him, ordinary and unafraid. His phone buzzed, one last notification from the city. Independent oversight board seated. Marcus turned it face down and kept walking. He didn't need to watch the door anymore. The city breathed, and for the first time since the shove, Marcus did too.